can you help me to understand that? I've been reflecting on when I found out that you lay off 10 people from your company. It must have been a very, very difficult decision for you. But what is surprising when I ask you about, your charity work is still going on. So you would have weighed, what the priority is. Can you help me to understand, in terms of responsible business, how do you come up with your decision?
Well, one of the things that has assisted us in the last year is we have a foundation. In the United States, these foundations can be separate from the actual corporate entity.
Right.
And this helps us because what that means is that donors from around the country can make a donation to the foundation, receive a tax deduction for their donation, and we then can use that money to operate. Now, so for example, the school that I mentioned in Tanzania that we built, the preschool, that was built using foundation financial resources. On the other hand, the school lunch program is coming right out of our bank account. That's not from the foundation. It's coming from Askinosie Chocolate, always has. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way we run that program. And so what you've outlined is a great question, which is, there are many needs. And the needs in the midst of this crisis can be overwhelming. And so the decision-making process of what to do can be quite challenging. And what I encourage entrepreneurs and business people to think about is I want them to think about their training. And their training, for however many years it is, has prepared them for this moment. This is what it's for. This is what it's all about. So the training that you've received, and when I say training, I mean the training that assisted you in the development of the core principles of who you are as a person and who you are as a company. And this means that the sort of soul, if you will, of the company, which I do believe that many companies do have a soul. And I think that this decision-making process is much easier if the entrepreneur and the leaders of the company have sort of practiced these things that I'm talking about over the years. So what that means is have the leaders of the company, have the entrepreneurs been in touch with the essence of who they are as people, who they are as leaders, who they are as, businessmen and women. And if so, this decision-making process is, I'm not saying it's easy, it's easier. It's not as challenging. Why? Because much like the pilot of an airplane who's facing a crisis, we hope that the pilot, when the instruments are telling the pilot, things are bad,
right,
we hope that our pilot is going to rely now, all of this training for all of these years are going to come forward, and the pilot is now going to know what to do. And do it in a calm manner, do it breathing deep breaths, not breathing from here. I talk about this a lot. Don't breathe from here up, deep breaths, rely on our muscle memory, and it will be easier. We'll know what to do. We know what to do.
Do your employees who were being laid off, do they understand?
The employees that have been laid off, of course, now they're all back. So as of today, Monday, they're all back. They were off for approximately 2 weeks and 1 day. And so do they understand? I mean, you'd have to ask them. I can't reach into their minds and tell you if they understand. I will say, though, that the company, the people who have been with me for a while or been with me for a long time, they know that I'm not going to leave them out in the cold. They know that I spoke with all of them, probably over that 2-week period, I probably spoke with each of them 5 times. So
That's
I
significant.
made, well, I made sure, we're a small company, so I can do that. But, I made sure that they knew that I care about them. I made sure that they knew that we could help them access government resources. And I let them know where we were in the process of bringing them back on payroll. So even though I didn't have all the answers, I told them very transparently what I was working on. The other thing I would say is that, for maybe 20 years or more, I've practiced something called open book management. And we haven't mentioned this, but I was a criminal defense lawyer before I started this thing. And even as a lawyer in my law firm, we practiced open book management. All that really means is we're transparent in our financial reporting. So everybody in the company knows where we are financially. So when something like this happens, then they understand the finances of the company. And, if my revenue is cut in half, then they're going to know without a great deal of, questions that we can't operate like that without making changes.
Understood.
Yeah.
I can imagine, as you explained to me, how little sleep you would have had in the last 4 weeks at least.
Yeah.
How are you keeping up?
Yeah, I didn't ever sleep very well. I haven't slept the greatest in, probably 15 or 20 years. I'm not a very good sleeper anyway. So, yes, this is hard. This is very hard. And, my daughter lives about a 9-hour drive away in Austin, Texas. We work together, and she's going to have a baby in August. So that's stressful not to be able to see her. And, she's, in the midst of this stress too. So I would say that, I don't really, everybody has their fears about this. And if you're a person who says, no, I have no fear about any of this, well, I don't believe you. Or I would say, then you're not in touch with who you are. Because why? I mean, we have fears that our family members might be hurt or harmed by this, both physically or economically. We have fears about our own health and well-being. We have fears about what's going to happen to the economy and what will happen. And I have my own set of fears too. So it's almost like, I've done a lot of work, spiritual work, I think, on myself in the last 20 years. And it's helped me a lot in this time, but it's not perfect. Okay. And what I mean by that is, yes, I've really made some progress, let's say, renovating the rooms of my house, my spiritual house over the years. So, this room is pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. This room over here is good. This room over here is really good. This room over here is terrible. This room over here needs a lot of work. Why have what is going on? Well, to be honest, Shawn, in the last couple of weeks, I've sort of judged myself, and I've said, come on, man, what is wrong? You've done all this work. Why is this one room in your spiritual house in such disarray? Why are you having such trouble? You should, be better than that. And what I've learned in this is that I need to be kind and gentle to myself about that. And so that is my path at this moment. And I'm being easier on myself for not being fearless in all things. And so I have mine too. And this is my path right now. And I would say also to encourage your
Audience,
viewers and listeners that if you have a practice, some kind of religious practice or spiritual practice or meditation practice or anything, now is the time to keep doing it, even if you don't feel like it. Even if you think, oh my goodness, this isn't helping. Yes, it is. It is. This is the practice of spiritual development is a long time. It's a marathon. This is not a time in which we should judge the perfection or lack of perfection in our practice. Now is just the time to do it. It's the time to do it.
How was your Easter?
It was different. My Easter was different, and I had never experienced anything quite like that. But it was good. And I was able to relax. And my wife and I attended a church service online, and the way many people have done as well. But the time leading up to Easter, Holy Week, was, it was very interesting to me how the scripture readings leading up to Easter Sunday were so relevant to what's happening in the world. And so in many ways, the time leading up to Easter was more challenging for me and more, it was a real awakening for me during those days because of what happened,